In 1935, a professor at Yale University made a discovery that should have changed everything we know about the human body. He was not a mystic. He was not a fringe theorist. He was a professor of anatomy at one of the most respected medical institutions in the world. He had peer-reviewed data. He had 40 years of it. What he found was this. The human body is surrounded by a measurable, structured energy field. A field that responds to emotional states. A field that can detect illness before any physical symptoms appear. A field that connects the living organism to everything around it. He published his findings in peer-reviewed journals for 40 years. And then the medical establishment buried it. But not everyone buried it. On the other side of the Iron Curtain, the Soviet Union read every word of that research and quietly spent over $1 billion trying to turn what that Yale professor had measured into a weapon. While that was happening, the CIA was producing classified reports about using human consciousness to escape the boundaries of time and space. And right now, today, DARPA is developing technology to read and rewrite human thought without surgery, without implants, using the same electromagnetic principles that Yale professor documented 90 years ago. Tonight, we follow the trail from a laboratory in New Haven to the KGB to a classified CIA document with a missing page the agency claims never existed, to the ancient traditions that mapped all of this long before any government had the budget to investigate it. His name was Harold Saxton Burr. In the 1930s, Burr was doing something at Yale University that the rest of the medical world was not prepared for. He was not a fringe figure. He was a professor emeritus of anatomy at one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the world, fully credentialed, deeply respected, with 4 decades of institutional support behind him. And what he spent that career investigating was this: the idea that every living thing exists within an electro-dynamic field, a field he called the L field, the life field. His theory, first published in 1935 in a co-authored paper with his Yale colleague, Dr. F.S.C. Northrop, proposed that the universe is organized and maintained by an electrodynamic field capable of determining the position and movement of all charged particles. In plain language, life is not only chemistry. It is not only cells and proteins and electrical signals between neurons. There is a field, an overarching organizing field that shapes and governs the physical body from the outside in. Burr and his team measured these fields in hundreds of experiments over 4 decades, in trees and mice and human beings. What they found was that the L field was not static. It changed with health, with disease, with emotional states, and with the cycles of the moon, and with solar activity. But the finding that should have made international headlines, the finding that should have changed medicine, was this. Burr was able to detect malignant ovarian cancer in women through the L field measurements before any physical symptoms appeared, before any conventional diagnostic tool could find it. The field changed first. The body followed. A non-invasive measurement of the body's electromagnetic field detecting cancer before it was clinically visible in the 1940s, published in the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine repeatedly over 40 years. 93 peer-reviewed scientific papers, and then nothing. No follow-up studies funded by the medical establishment, no integration into clinical practice, no mention in biology or medical textbooks, and this remains true today. Pick up any standard medical textbook, Harold Saxton Burr does not exist. The timing was brutal. The 1940s and 50s were the golden age of pharmaceutical medicine. Antibiotics were saving millions of lives. The biochemical model of the body, the idea that everything reduces to molecules and chemistry, was triumphant. It was profitable, and it had no room for invisible electro-dynamic fields that could not be bottled and sold. Burr's final book, published in 1972, entitled Blueprint for Immortality, laid out his life's work in full. He argued that the L field was the blueprint of life itself, that it proceeded in organized physical form rather than being produced by it. He died in 1973. His work died with him, at least in the West. Because somewhere else, in a very different kind of laboratory, people had been reading Harold Burr's work very carefully. And they had a very different idea about what to do with it. The Soviet Union had a problem, the same problem every major military power has always had. How do you get inside the mind of your enemy? How do you influence, disrupt, or disable a human being without firing a single shot? Conventional espionage could only take you so far, and so, beginning as early as the 1920s, Soviet military and intelligence agencies began funding research into something they believed the West was too cautious or too arrogant to take seriously. They called it psychotronics. Psychotronics, the study of the relationship between human consciousness, the human energy field, and the physical world. The idea that the body emits and receives energetic information, and with the right technology, that information could be read, disrupted, or weaponized. This was not a fringe program. It was formally reviewed by the Soviet Academy of Sciences in 1961. It received full state funding. It operated within the official Soviet research establishment for decades. The KGB alone spent more than 500 million rubles on psychotronic research. When you include the military, the Academy of Sciences, and the research institutes, the total investment has been estimated at over $1 billion. Soviet scientists developed a device they called the Serpan, designed to generate, store, and radiate what they termed bioplasmic human energy, essentially a machine version of what Burr had measured as the L field. Researchers reported that energy emitted by the Serpan could change the magnetization of hydrogen nuclei in living tissue. It could stimulate or suppress the immune systems of biological organisms. A machine that generates and transmits human biofield energy that could be used to heal or to silently destroy from a distance. In 1972, the United States Defense Intelligence Agency produced a classified report, Controlled Offensive Techniques, which confirmed that Soviet scientists had explored techniques that could be targeted specifically against U.S. and Allied personnel stationed in nuclear missile silos. The Defense Intelligence Agency was formally warning that the Soviets may have developed the ability to remotely affect the minds and bodies of American soldiers guarding nuclear weapons. Soviet biologist Edward Naumov stated publicly that a psychotronic generator can influence an individual or an entire crowd, that it can affect a person's psyche mentally and emotionally, that it can disrupt memory and attention span. Vladimir Putin, in an official 2011 to 2020 Russian state arms procurement document, specifically referenced the continued development of psychophysical weapons. And Havana Syndrome, beginning in 2016 and affecting American diplomats in Cuba, China, Russia, and dozens of other postings with unexplained neurological injuries, continues to be investigated using Soviet-era biofield and electromagnetic research as a serious analytical framework. The Soviets read Burr's research and asked, how do we use this against people? But there was another question. One being asked not in a government laboratory, not with $1 billion budget, but in places far older than any of that. Not how do we weaponize the human energy field, but how do we work with it? If the Soviets were spending $1 billion on the human energy field, what was the United States doing about it? The short answer is exactly the same thing. By 1970, CIA estimates put Soviet spending on psychotronic research at approximately 60 million rubles per year. By 1975, over 300 million. What followed was a collection of classified American programs. Grill Flame, Center Lane, Sunstreak, Scanate. Run jointly by the Defense Intelligence Agency, U.S. Army Intelligence, and the CIA, eventually consolidated under one name, Project Stargate. America's Psychic Spy Program, early 1970s through 1995, approximately $20 million total, around 23 trained remote viewers. In 1974, a remote viewer described, from coordinates alone with no prior knowledge, an unusual airfield featuring a large gantry and crane structure. It matched with remarkable accuracy the Soviet nuclear testing facility at Semipalatinsk, Kazakhstan. In a separate operation, a remote viewer located a crashed Soviet Tu-95 strategic bomber in Africa within several miles of the actual wreckage. The program results were genuinely contested. Statistician Jessica Utz concluded remote viewing demonstrated a statistically significant positive effect. A second reviewer disputed operational value. The program was officially terminated in 1995. Officially. But Project Stargate is not the most extraordinary thing the U.S. government produced in this area. In 1983, a U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel named Wayne McDonald wrote a classified report at the CIA's request, Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process. Classified on completion, declassified in 2003, it went viral in 2021. The Gateway Process was a consciousness training program developed by the Monroe Institute in Virginia, founded by Robert Monroe, who had begun experiencing involuntary out-of-body states in the late 1950s. McDonald's report concluded, in official U.S. military and intelligence language, that the Gateway experience is a training system designed to alter consciousness and ultimately allow the practitioner to escape even the restrictions of time and space. Time and space. A classified CIA document written by a U.S. Army officer stating that a consciousness training program can enable human awareness to operate outside the boundaries of time and space. The report also references a universal energy field that permeates all of existence, the same field Harold Burr measured at Yale in 1935, the same field the Soviets spent $1 billion trying to weaponize. If you find the declassified Gateway Process report, the link is in the description, you will notice something. Page 25 is missing. Not redacted, not blacked out, missing. The report moves from page 24 to page 26 as though page 25 was never there. Since 2021, countless FOIA requests have demanded the release of page 25. In every case, the CIA's response is the same. They don't have it, they say it never existed. A U.S. Army report with sequential page numbering and page 25 never existed. Right now, not in 1983, not in 1995, but right now, DARPA is running a program called N3, Next Generation Non-Surgical Neurotechnology. Bidirectional brain-machine interfaces for military personnel. No surgery, no implants. Instead, light, acoustic energy, and electromagnetic fields directed at the human body from outside to both read neural activity and write new signals directly into the brain. Read and write. One N3 subproject, Brainstorms, developed magnetoelectric nanoparticles that can be injected into the body, guided to a specific brain region, establish a two-way communication channel with an external helmet transceiver, and then be magnetically extracted when the mission is complete. Injectable, retrievable, brain interface nanoparticles. This reached DARPA Phase 2 funding. By 2025, N3 prototypes had demonstrated drone and robotic control via brain signals alone, without touching any physical interface. The question has never been whether the human energy field is real. The question, the one that governments and intelligence agencies have been asking in secret for 90 years, is what can I do with it? We have spent the last 15 minutes following a trail of billion-dollar weapons programs, classified intelligence operations, and cutting-edge military technology. Every single thread leads back to the same thing, the human energy field. They were not the first, not by a few decades, not by a century, by thousands of years. Every major wisdom tradition in human history, independently, on opposite sides of the globe, in cultures that had no contact with one another, described in remarkable detail exactly what Harold Burr measured at Yale, exactly what the Soviets spent $1 billion trying to capture in a machine, exactly what DARPA is now attempting to interface with using injectable nanoparticles. They just use different words for it. In ancient Egypt, the energetic body was called the Ka, the vital life force that animated physical form and persisted beyond physical death. Disease was understood as a disruption of energetic flow long before it manifested in the physical body. That is precisely what Harold Burr documented in his cancer detection research in the 1940s. In traditional Chinese medicine, an unbroken clinical tradition stretching back over 3,000 years, the human energy field is called Qi. It flows through the body along specific pathways called meridians. The locations of the major energy centers in the Chinese system and in the Indian yogic tradition, where they are called chakras, correspond almost exactly with the body's major nerve plexuses and endocrine glands, structures whose electromagnetic activity we can now measure with modern instruments. These traditions were mapping the electromagnetic architecture of the human body, without instruments, without laboratories, through disciplined observation passed down over millennia. William Tiller, Professor Emeritus of Material Science and Engineering at Stanford, demonstrated under controlled laboratory conditions, reproducibly, that human intention could measurably change the pH of water in a sealed environment. Stanford. Controlled conditions, measurable, reproducible results. Edgar Mitchell, U.S. Navy pilot, MIT-trained aerospace engineer, sixth human to walk on the moon, on his return from the Apollo 14 mission in 1971, experienced what he described as an explosion of awareness, the certain knowledge that everything in the universe is part of a single living field of consciousness. He founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences to investigate this scientifically. The Global Consciousness Project at Princeton maintains a worldwide network of random number generators during periods of large-scale collective human emotion, September 11th, Princess Diana's death, major global meditation events. The network shows statistically significant deviations from randomness. Princeton University random number generators, statistically significant results. The Soviet Union approached the human energy field as a target. DARPA approaches it as a system to be hacked. Both require something from the outside. The ancient traditions found something completely different. They found that the instrument was already there, that the human being, through disciplined practice and the cultivation of specific inner states, could learn to consciously work with their own field, to extend awareness, to connect with something larger than the individual self. No weapon program required, no classified budget, no nanoparticles. just consciousness deliberately directed. Their governments want to build a machine to do what the ancient traditions said the human being could already do naturally. Which raises a question worth sitting with. What did they know that they did not want us to know we already had? In 1939, Soviet inventor Semyon Kurlian accidentally discovered coronaphotography of living organisms, a luminous, structured corona visible on photographic plates that varied with health and emotional states. In one series of experiments, a leaf's complete energetic outline remained visible on the photograph even after portions of the leaf had been physically removed. The phantom leaf present in the field after it was gone from the physical form. At UCLA, Dr. Thelma Moss found coronal patterns that merged at the edges when couples focused loving thoughts toward each other, and did not when they focused hostile thoughts. The phantom leaf phenomenon has not been consistently replicated under rigorous controlled conditions. Kurlian science remains genuinely unresolved. That is stated clearly because the investigation is built on intellectual honesty. The weight of evidence matters more than the appeal of a compelling image. The HeartMath Institute, Boulder Creek, Colorado, 30 years of peer-reviewed research. This is not contested. Their findings stand on their own, independent of any interpretation placed on them. Here are the facts. The human heart's electrical field is approximately 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity of the brain. Its magnetic field is more than 100 times stronger than the brain's, and measurable up to 3 feet away from the body in every direction using a squid-based magnetometer. That field carries information, specifically information about emotional state. Fear produces one electromagnetic pattern, compassion produces another, frustration produces another still. That emotionally encoded information is being broadcast into the environment around you. Other people's nervous systems receive it and respond, often without any conscious awareness. In one HeartMath study, a mother's brainwave patterns synchronized with her infant's heartbeat even when a physical barrier was placed between them. The field carried the signal through the barrier. Published in over 500 peer-reviewed and independent studies, including the American Journal of Cardiology and the Harvard Business Review. This is not fringe science. HeartMath's Global Coherence Monitoring System, a worldwide network of magnetometers, track the Earth's own electromagnetic and geomagnetic fields. Researchers found a measurable relationship between solar activity, geomagnetic fluctuations, and changes in human health and behavior. The Earth has its own field. The sun influences that field, and the human heart, broadcasting its electromagnetic signal 3 feet in every direction, is embedded within and responsive to those larger fields. The ancient astrological traditions described exactly this relationship. HeartMath now has the instruments to begin measuring what the ancient skywatchers were observing with nothing but attention and time. The question was never whether the field exists. The question, the one asked in secret by intelligence agencies and in sacred traditions for thousands of years, is what a human being can do when they learn to work with it consciously. HeartMath calls it heart coherence. When a sustained state of genuine positive emotion is cultivated, embodied states like compassion, appreciation, calm, the heart's electromagnetic rhythm reorganizes into a smooth, ordered, coherent pattern. The field changes. The information it broadcasts changes. The nervous system operates differently. Immune function improves, cognitive clarity increases, and the people in proximity respond to the signal the heart is now transmitting. The ancient traditions called this cultivating the inner life, developing the subtle body, raising the vibration. The governments spent billions building machines to do this from the outside. The answer was inside you all along. In 1935, a Yale professor measured an energy field surrounding the human body that the medical establishment decided the world was not ready to know about. The Soviet Union read his work and spent $1 billion trying to turn it into a weapon. The United States responded with its own secret programs, psychic spies, classified consciousness research, and a CIA report about escaping the boundaries of time and space that is still missing a page. Right now, DARPA is developing technology to read and rewrite human thought using electromagnetic fields without touching the body. And woven through all of it, older than Yale, older than the KGB, older than DARPA, are traditions that mapped this field thousands of years ago, that developed systematic practices for working with it consciously, that understood, without instruments or billion-dollar budgets, that the human being is not a closed system, that you are broadcasting right now in every direction, 3 feet and beyond. They knew. They have always known. The only question that remains, and it is the question this channel exists to explore, is what happens when you know it too. If this investigation resonated with you, if you have ever sensed that the official story leaves something important out, this is the channel for you. We are going to keep pulling threads, hidden history, suppressed science, ancient knowledge that was never lost, only overlooked, and the places where all of those things converge in ways the mainstream is not ready to discuss yet. Subscribe and come back, because we're just getting started.